Most people spend their lives obeying rules written by others. The powerful, however, play by darker laws, laws hidden from the herd. In this video, we will tear the mask off those secret rules, exposing how genius minds outmaneuver, manipulate, and dominate, without anyone realizing until it's too late. Power is not gained through honesty or kindness. It is seized through perception, deception, and ruthless calculation. The weak cling to morality, while the cunning write reality. Throughout history, those remembered as great were not merely strong. They were strategic, capable of bending human nature itself to their will. In this lesson, I will guide you into the shadows where the darkest laws of power are practiced by those who rule unseen. Listen carefully, for these are not lessons for the timid, but for those prepared to conquer without remorse. A power does not announce itself with force. It whispers, it smiles, it wears the mask of virtue. Ask yourself, when was the last time you trusted someone because they seemed kind, honest, or righteous? You felt safe, didn't you? But safety is often the first illusion that power plants in your mind. History is filled with leaders who cloaked their ambition in morality. Julius Caesar claimed to defend the Republic even as he dismantled it. He spoke of loyalty, duty, and honor, yet every move positioned him closer to absolute control. His words were the mask. His ambition was the weapon, and the Senate never saw the blade until it was at their throat. This is the first law of power: never show the hunger for power directly. The masses recoil from naked ambition. They punish the one who admits, "I want control," but cloak that same hunger beneath virtue, and they not only accept it, they celebrate it. Consider the church during the Middle Ages. Kings feared swords, but they feared the Pope more. Why? Not because he wielded armies, but because he appeared as God's servant. By wearing the mask of divine virtue, the church bent entire empires to its will. Obedience was not demanded, it was volunteered. That is the genius of virtue as a disguise. Psychologically, people are programmed to seek morality in others. Social trust depends on it. When you display generosity, humility, or righteousness, even if false, brains soften, defenses drop, and suspicion dissolves. It is not truth that governs behavior. It is perception, and perception can be engineered. Have you noticed how politicians kiss babies, speak of justice, and pretend to serve the people? They understand the mask. Their personal lives may be ruthless, corrupted, even depraved, but the mask is what the crowd sees. And the crowd only believes what is shown. Now, reflect on your own life. If you walk into a room openly ambitious, declaring superiority, what happens? Resistance, envy, backlash. But if you walk in cloaked in modesty, while secretly planning, you are underestimated. They lower their guard, and you strike when they least expect it. The mask is not only defensive, it is offensive. It allows you to manipulate without suspicion. It allows you to betray without blame. It allows you to win without appearing to fight. Take Napoleon. He spoke endlessly of liberty and equality. He promised freedom. But every promise was a rope tightening around Europe's neck. By the time they realized his mask was false, his empire stretched across the continent, and even his enemies admired him for the very ideals he pretended to serve. This is why the mask is indispensable. People want to believe in virtue. They crave it. They cling to it. Give them what they want to see, and you can do whatever you want behind the curtain. But here is the danger. You must never remove the mask. Once people glimpse the true face beneath, they will turn on you with the fury of betrayal. A tyrant is tolerated. A hypocrite is despised. The mask must become your second skin, so convincing that even you forget, at times, that it is a lie. Do you see the paradox? Power lies not in truth, but in deception that feels true. Not in strength, but in the illusion of righteousness. And what of you? How do you wield this? Imagine in your daily dealings at work, in relationships, in negotiation. Do you show your hunger, or do you smile while concealing it? Which version of you earns trust? Which version opens doors without force? The weak think honesty is a virtue. The strong know honesty is a tool used sparingly only when it serves advantage. The mask of virtue is not optional. It is survival. It is camouflage in a world where the naive are hunted. And remember, those you admire most are often those who wore the mask best. So the question is not whether you should wear it. The question is, can you master it before someone masters you? Because the mask of virtue is only the first layer. Beneath it lie even darker laws, laws that no one dares to speak aloud. And it is time we speak them. Power is not taken by force alone. It is drawn from the soft spots others try to hide. Every man and woman carries weaknesses: fear, vanity, desire, guilt. To the blind, these are invisible. To the strategist, they are open doors. Ask yourself, how often do you search for strength in others? That is a mistake. The key to control lies not in strength, but in what breaks a person when touched. Alexander the Great conquered vast empires, not just with armies, but with insight. He studied rulers before facing them. He learned what they loved, what they feared, what they could not bear to lose. Then he pressed on those nerves until they collapsed. Victory was not only on the battlefield, it was in the mind of his enemy. Weakness is leverage, and leverage is power. Consider this: a rival may seem unshakable in public, yet in private he might fear humiliation, rejection, or the loss of wealth. If you discover that weakness, you no longer need to destroy him. You need only threaten to touch the wound. He will destroy himself. This is why spies and informants are more dangerous than soldiers. Armies clash in the open. Spies reveal secrets that can bend the proudest king to his knees. Psychologically, humans reveal weakness without knowing. Their words, gestures, even silences betray them. The one who listens carefully, who observes what others dismiss, becomes a master of invisible chains. Have you noticed how flatterers succeed where the blunt fail? It is because flattery feeds vanity, and vanity is one of the deepest weaknesses. When you make someone believe they are greater than they are, you own them. They will open doors for you, defend you, even betray themselves to keep your approval. Think of Cleopatra. She understood that Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were not just powerful men. They were men with desires, with egos craving admiration. She weaponized her beauty, her charm, her presence. Empires fell at her feet because she exploited the weaknesses of conquerors. She never fought Rome with armies. She fought it with seduction. Now, reflect on your own surroundings. How many people parade their strength while hiding fractures inside? A colleague desperate for recognition, a friend enslaved by their emotions, a superior terrified of losing status. If you learn to see what they fear, you learn to command them. But here is the art: you must never reveal that you know. Expose a man's weakness openly, and he turns defensive, hostile, even dangerous. Use it quietly, and he becomes your instrument without realizing it. This is the elegance of weaponizing weakness. You make others believe they are acting freely, when in truth, you are pulling the strings tied to their fragile places. Think of modern politics. Leaders rise and fall not because of their brilliance, but because opponents uncover scandals, addictions, or hidden shames. These weaknesses are turned into chains. Public opinion is the battlefield, but the weakness itself is the weapon. And in personal life, the same law applies. The lover who knows your insecurities controls you. The employer who understands your desperation sets your wage. The manipulator who detects your loneliness dictates your loyalty. Weakness, once discovered, is a leash. So, ask yourself honestly, what is your weakness? Because if you cannot name it, someone else already has, and they will use it when the moment arrives. The strong do not hide weakness. They transform it into armor. But most never achieve this. Most live as walking vulnerabilities, waiting for a sharper mind to exploit them. You must train yourself to see differently. Do not look at people as they present themselves. Look at what makes them tremble. Look at what they cannot resist. Look at what they cannot lose. That is where your power lies. But caution, power gained from weakness is addictive. Once you taste how easily people bend when you touch their fragile spots, you may become reckless. And recklessness exposes your weakness. Remember, the predator who overfeeds becomes prey. The true strategist learns to hold the leash gently, so the victim never bites. To apply just enough pressure, so they follow willingly. to make weakness not just a vulnerability, but a gift you exploit again and again. This is the second law: strength is overrated. Weakness rules the game. But if exploiting weakness bends people to your will, what about silence? What about saying nothing, yet making others reveal everything? That is where the next law begins. Power is not only about what you do, it is also about where you stand. Too close and people see your flaws. Too far and they forget your presence. The art lies in controlling distance, appearing just enough to inspire and vanishing just enough to intrigue. Ask yourself, why do monarchs rarely mingle with commoners? Why do great leaders retreat into palaces, surrounded by layers of ceremony? It is not weakness. It is strategy. Distance creates reverence. Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, mastered this. He turned his life into a theater of power. Courtiers watched him wake, dine, and walk as if witnessing a divine performance. Yet he never allowed anyone too close. The illusion of perfection remained intact because distance concealed his ordinary humanity. To his people, he was not a man. He was a god cloaked in silk. This is the first lesson: if you want to be admired, you cannot be fully known. Familiarity breeds not respect, but contempt. When people see every detail of your life, when they know your fears and habits, the mystery dies, and with it, their awe. Think of your own experiences. Do you admire more the colleague who constantly seeks your attention, or the one who remains slightly out of reach, who makes you wonder what they are truly thinking? Scarcity creates value. Distance creates demand. Psychologically, the human mind is drawn to what it cannot fully grasp. When something is too available, it becomes cheap. When something withdraws, it becomes desirable. This is why the aloof win affection, and the desperate are ignored. Julius Caesar understood this with his troops. He dined with them, fought with them, but always maintained an invisible line. He was of them, yet above them. He revealed enough to inspire loyalty, but never so much that his authority dissolved into equality. He kept just the right distance to remain untouchable. Now, think of relationships. The lover who smothers with constant presence suffocates desire. The one who disappears entirely loses relevance. But the one who alternates closeness with distance controls the rhythm of longing. They dictate when attention is given and when it is withheld. That is not love. It is power disguised as intimacy. Do you see the pattern? Distance is not absence. Distance is control. It is the ability to make others reach for you, wonder about you, depend on your presence precisely because it is not guaranteed. But beware, the wrong distance breeds disaster. A ruler too detached becomes hated, seen as cold and uncaring. A leader too close becomes mocked, stripped of majesty. The balance must be calculated, deliberate, and fluid. Even in modern politics, leaders stage their appearances carefully. They do not flood the stage daily. They emerge at chosen moments with chosen words magnified by scarcity. Absence makes the public lean forward, hungry for the return. Presence then hits with greater impact. And this is not limited to thrones or offices. In your life, the same law applies. If you are always available, your value diminishes. If you are never available, your influence evaporates. To master distance is to master perception, but distance also protects. It shields you from betrayal because no one knows you fully. It shields you from envy because you reveal less to attack. It shields you from weakness because you never give them the full truth. Think of it as armor made not of metal, but of mystery, and yet, distance can also be a weapon. By withdrawing suddenly, you create panic. By denying your presence, you create obsession. By refusing contact, you make others chase you. Do you understand the power in that? To not beg for attention, but to command it by being absent. To not plead for loyalty, but to make others prove it in your silence. That is the essence of the art. The world is full of people who overexpose themselves, desperate to be seen. They weaken their aura with every unnecessary word, every careless disclosure. The few who learn restraint, who maintain controlled distance, rise above the noise like statues among shadows. This is the third law's: be present enough to matter, distant enough to be worshipped. But if distance creates reverence, what happens when you combine it with silence? when you not only step back, but also say nothing, forcing others to fill the void with their own confessions. Words are weapons. But silence is a battlefield of its own. Most people cannot bear it. When confronted with silence, they rush to fill the void. They reveal themselves. They confess. They give you power without realizing it. Ask yourself, how many times have you spoken too much, only to regret it later? How often have you betrayed your own intentions simply because you feared the discomfort of saying nothing? This is why silence is not weakness. It is a trap. In history, the shrewdest rulers understood this. Take the court of Venice. The Doge rarely spoke in public council, and when he did, his words were few, yet those words carried the weight of mountains. His silence made others anxious, desperate to interpret his mind. And in their eagerness, they revealed their own. Contrast this with the foolish prince who speaks endlessly. His words scatter like arrows in all directions, hitting no target. The more he speaks, the less weight his voice carries. Silence works because the human mind is uncomfortable with uncertainty. Psychologically, people crave closure. When you give none, they create it themselves. They project their fears, their hopes, their assumptions into the silence you hold. And often, those projections reveal more about them than any interrogation ever could. Think of negotiations. The amateur rushes to make his case, stacking words upon words, desperate to persuade. The master states his position, then waits. The silence presses on the opponent, who panics and fills it with concessions. In the end, he bargains against himself. Have you seen how interrogators use silence? A suspect is asked a question, then silence follows. No anger, no argument. Just silence. The suspect grows restless. He blurts out answers, often revealing more than intended. This is not force. It is patience sharpened into strategy. Consider also the art of relationships. A lover who constantly explains, justifies, apologizes, loses power with every word. The one who stays silent after betrayal, who withholds explanation, commands the room. Silence makes others fear what you might be thinking. Fear is influence. But silence is not only about withholding speech. It is about watching, listening, allowing others to expose themselves. In silence, their body language speaks. Their contradictions surface, their masks slip. Do you understand what this means? By saying less, you learn more. By waiting, you win. The great Chinese strategist Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Silence is such a weapon. It draws the enemy into self-destruction, all while you remain untouchable. But there is another dimension. Silence not only extracts information, it creates mystique. Think of the leaders who remain elusive, who rarely give interviews, who guard their words carefully. They are respected more, feared more, precisely because their silence forces imagination to fill the gaps. What is not said becomes larger than what is spoken. In your life, apply this law ruthlessly. When insulted, remain silent. The insulter grows nervous, wondering if he has struck too deep. When challenged, pause before responding. The challenger begins to question his own confidence. When pressured to reveal your plan, say nothing. Let them stumble in the dark while you move in silence. But beware, silence must be deliberate. Too much, and you appear weak, indecisive, or ignorant. Too little, and your words lose weight. The art lies in timing, knowing when silence cuts deeper than speech. Think of silence as a blade you keep sheathed. You do not wave it wildly. You draw it slowly, only when its edge will leave the deepest wound. Most people fear silence. The strategist wields it. So, the next time you are drawn into endless chatter, remember, the one who speaks least often controls the conversation. The one who listens, who withholds, who waits, commands the outcome. This is the fourth law. Say less, hear more, and let silence do the work of power. But silence alone is not enough. There are times when silence must be broken, shattered with chaos, unpredictability, and fear. Order comforts the weak. Chaos terrifies them. But the one who learns to control chaos wields a power greater than any law or army. Ask yourself, what is more dangerous, a predictable enemy or one who moves like a storm, never fully grasped, never fully contained? The human mind craves patterns. It longs to anticipate. When faced with unpredictability, it falters. Fear takes over. This is why controlled chaos is such a potent weapon, not chaos for its own sake, that destroys indiscriminately, but chaos directed, calculated, released like fire only where it burns most effectively. Consider Genghis Khan. His armies swept across continents with terrifying speed, but it was not only force that won battles. It was unpredictability. He attacked where least expected, retreated only to lure enemies deeper, struck with fury when they were unprepared. Entire kingdoms surrendered before a fight because they could not predict him. His chaos was not random. It was a weapon sharpened by control. The same principle applies beyond war. Think of politics. A leader who follows the script of tradition becomes easy to outmaneuver. But one who breaks patterns, who speaks when silence is expected, who withdraws when confrontation is assumed, keeps rivals guessing. And while they guess, he advances. Psychologically, uncertainty is torment. Experiments show that people fear unpredictable shocks more than certain pain. The unknown corrodes the mind, gnawing at it more than suffering itself. If you can make someone unsure of what you will do next, you enslave them with their own imagination. Have you noticed this in personal life? A partner who is entirely predictable loses allure. But one who sometimes withdraws, sometimes overwhelms, keeps desire alive. The uncertainty forces attention. The unpredictability creates dependence. But here is the danger. You must never lose control of the chaos you unleash. Randomness without direction destroys trust, credibility, and eventually your own foundations. Controlled chaos is not recklessness. It is theater. It is calculation disguised as disorder. Think of the Roman general Fabius Maximus. Facing Hannibal, he refused direct battle. Instead, he harassed, retreated, struck suddenly, then vanished. Rome hated him for it at first, calling him cowardly. Yet his strategy drained Hannibal's strength, until chaos itself became Rome's weapon. His enemies could never predict his hand. In the courtly world, chaos appears as contradiction. The manipulator who sometimes praises, sometimes insults, keeps others uncertain. Where do I stand with him? They wonder. And in that uncertainty, they cling closer, desperate for approval. Even silence, when paired with sudden bursts of aggression, becomes chaotic in effect. People never know whether you will ignore them or strike them, and so they remain on edge, constantly alert, constantly weakened. Do you see? Chaos is not the absence of control. It is control magnified by confusion. It is power gained not by brute force, but by destabilizing the expectations of others. Now, reflect on your own environment. How predictable are you? Do others always know how you will react? If so, you are already at a disadvantage. Predictability makes you vulnerable, because it gives your enemies the ability to plan. But what if they could never anticipate your next move? What if they feared your silence as much as your words, your retreat as much as your attack? What if your unpredictability became their prison? That is the essence of this law, to weave uncertainty into your presence, so others live in constant adjustment to you. Yet, never forget, the storm must eventually calm. If you remain chaos forever, you lose trust and destroy alliances. Controlled chaos requires rhythm disruption followed by stability, shock followed by calm. Like a master musician, you must know when to strike loud and when to fall silent. In modern power, this law remains alive. Corporations release sudden innovations to destabilize competitors. Leaders employ unexpected moves to control the narrative. Even in daily life, the unpredictable individual commands attention, while the predictable one is forgotten. Chaos, when uncontrolled, is madness. Chaos, when harnessed. This is the fifth law: confuse, unsettle, and dominate by breaking expectations. But what happens when chaos is no longer enough? When the true mark of strength is not in disorder, but in the ruthless ability to leave, to abandon people, allies, or even parts of yourself without hesitation. There is no bond you cannot sever, no tie you cannot cut. Those who believe loyalty is eternal are slaves to sentiment. Those who understand the power of abandonment become masters of their own destiny. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed in a relationship, a job, or an alliance long past its usefulness? Did it make you stronger, or weaker. Power does not come from clinging. Power comes from knowing when to walk away and leaving others broken in your absence. History is merciless on this point. The Ottoman sultans ruled by fear, but their strength came not only from conquest. It came from their ability to abandon even their closest allies when they threatened stability. A vizier who grew too powerful was discarded without hesitation. No tears, no hesitation. That ruthless ability to cut ties kept the empire intact for centuries. Psychologically, abandonment is devastating because humans fear it more than defeat. Loss of money can be endured. Loss of reputation can be rebuilt. But the feeling of being left, discarded, cuts into the deepest insecurities. When you withdraw your presence, you deprive others of validation, protection, and identity, and that absence enslaves them more effectively than your presence ever could. Consider relationships. The lover who refuses to leave becomes predictable, controllable. The lover who can walk away without warning holds the ultimate leverage. Why? Because the fear of abandonment keeps the other in line. They bend, they obey, they beg, just to prevent the silence of your absence. Think of Julius Caesar once more. His greatest weapon was not the sword, but the loyalty he commanded. Yet when allies no longer served his ambition, he abandoned them without remorse. He knew a simple truth: sentiment weakens judgment. A man who cannot leave when the time demands it is already conquered. Have you noticed how employers treat workers? The company that can replace you at any time holds power. The one that fears your departure does not. This is why leaders cultivate an image of self-sufficiency. They want you to believe they can discard you. And often, they can. The threat alone keeps you bound. Now turn the mirror on yourself. Do people know you can walk away, or do they sense your dependence? If they know you fear losing them, you have already given them the leash. If they know you can vanish, your silence becomes their terror. Abandonment is not cruelty, it is strategy. By leaving at the right moment, you create desperation. By denying closure, you leave wounds open, and wounded people will crawl back, willing to offer more just to regain what they lost. But there is a danger here. Abandon too often, and you become isolated. Power requires followers, allies, and pawns. The art lies in balance, staying long enough to extract maximum value, then leaving before the tie becomes a chain around your neck. Think of the Cold War. The United States abandoned allies when it no longer suited strategy. Brutal, yes. Effective, undeniably. Nations that once believed themselves indispensable discovered they were not, and that knowledge reshaped global obedience. Even in daily life, the same truth applies. A friend who is always available becomes taken for granted. A friend who withdraws suddenly becomes unforgettable. It is absence, not presence, that burns the memory deepest into the mind. Do you see the paradox? People chase what abandons them. They cling to what rejects them. They ignore what clings to them. If you can master the art of leaving, you can create dependency without ever giving more of yourself. But this requires coldness. You must resist the instinct to explain, to comfort, to soften the blow. True abandonment is silent. It denies closure. It leaves questions unanswered, emotions unresolved. And in that void, your power multiplies. The weak call this cruelty. The strong know it as necessity. So I ask you, who truly owns power? The one who stays, or the one who can leave? This is the sixth law: never chain yourself. Learn to abandon before you are abandoned. But what comes after abandonment? Once you have created the void, once you have instilled desperation, how do you ensure the silence works in your favor? That takes us to the next law. It is quiet. It is invisible. The greatest chains are the ones no one sees. A word withheld. A silence extended. A choice made at the precise moment it hurts most. You do not need to shout commands. You let others believe the thought was their own. And when they act according to your design, they will thank you for it. That is true mastery. Not domination through force, but submission disguised as freedom. Ask yourself, how many around you are guiding your steps without you knowing? And how many steps do you control in return? The dark truth is this: you are either the hand moving the pieces, or the piece being moved. Now the question remains, where do you stand? Leave your answer in the comments. Subscribe if you want more strategies that strip away the illusions. And share this video so others may learn how power truly works. The game is already being played. Do not be the one who realizes it too late.